Hello. Hello. Should we do a fantasy landscape? That was what you wanted, wasn't it? A fantasy landscape. I've been okay. I've just woken up, so. Hello, Dominic. Okay. Let's just pattern stamp our way around. And then squish that and stretch it. Make the background darker and bluer. Okay, let's mark in a tree line. Like that. Okay, now we got some like trees. Now I'm trying to get the idea that we're actually seeing the side of this grass. And then the fantasy part comes in because we're gonna have a really big mountain. Yeah. I need a walking stick guy, obviously. I also want to maybe the mountains are really funny shape, like this. Giant boulders, I guess. That's much more wildly fantasy, isn't it? That's just... There you go, so we've got some big, weird mountains. Yeah, there's probably going to be a stick salesman somewhere. Maybe I need to make the sky more interesting. Maybe we should get rid of this. Yeah, see, rule of odds, I think it is, says there should be 3 of these and not 4. And that seems to make sense to me. I don't know exactly what these giant rocks are supposed to be, but we'll have that one in the far distance be our focal point. What if it was on a different planet? What are my opinion on everyone doing all the same stuff? What, like, stick salesman? I think universally the response to everyone doing the same stuff is usually like, ew, why is everyone doing the same stuff? Do something original. It takes a while to realize or figure out that a lot of the time people do the same stuff because the same stuff works. Like, there's a reason why we have a lot of these tropes, and it's because they do the job very, very well. Like, stick salesman tells the scale, he's got a stick, so he looks like he's exploring. It kind of makes sense to use him in that way. And there are lots of concept art tropes like that you could try and avoid them and make something new, and you should always try and kind of strive to make something interesting and new. But when you actually have to make a piece of work, sometimes like tropes are very, very helpful. Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that happens is, especially with something like creature design, right? Is yesterday we did some creature design. Let me open up what we did yesterday. Okay, this was yesterday's stream. I've made it pretty much look like a dog because I want it to look friendly. If I go so alien with my design that it's nothing anyone's ever seen before, it also just means that the audience can't relate to it in any meaningful way. If I design something that's like truly unique, an audience is gonna look at it and they're gonna go, is it friendly? Is it meant to eat me? What does it do? What kind of creature is it? Whereas if I relate it to something that already exists, like I give it ears a bit like a dog, or a tail a bit like a dog, someone can look at it and immediately go, oh, it's a dog kind of animal. I mean, it's still got a big sharp teeth, so maybe you don't want to mess with it, but I can see that it would probably have some of the things that a dog has. And you almost want that to be subconscious, right? So an audience isn't gonna go, "Oh, it's a dog," out loud, but they're gonna look at it and they're gonna relate some of the parts of it, like the waggy tail and stuff, to a dog, and then they're gonna get the same feelings they get when they look at a dog. Even this looks like what we think a dinosaur looks like, but if I made some kind of eldritch alien limbs, A, no one would understand what's going on, but B, I wouldn't even be able to, because if I'm designing, I can only rely on things that I've already seen, because that's how the human brain works, right? Whether I like it or not, I'm referencing things that I understand and have seen. So I can't really draw something that doesn't already exist, because it probably does exist if I'm drawing it. Yeah, I feel like a good balance is having a lot of something be generic in the way that most concept art stuff is generic, but twist it in, in one way. Or I quite like the idea that you have a lot of you put a lot of the generic kind of tropey stuff in the design, maybe, but then you paint it in a more interesting way. I'm much more interested in getting maybe an appealing composition or something that doesn't rely on tropes. I mean, I know that this is exactly that, because this does rely on tropes, because I've only got an hour to stream. But if I had longer, let's open up some paintings. I did this painting, if I can find it. This isn't the finished version. I did make a finished version, but I didn't save it. And I'm trying to... You can imagine if this was like your traditional concept art shot, that it'd be a super wide angle. We'd see all the cathedral, there'd be loads of people in the background, and he'd be smothered in atmosphere or whatever. And I wanted to like really zoom in to the point where you can only see this guy's face, and everyone else's face is obscured or whatever. It's also a bit of a weird angle and a weird focal length as well. It's meant to be a bit more telescopic. And here are some of the thumbnails I did for it, right? And as I was doing the thumbnails, I was trying to think about interesting ways I could pose this. But again, the idea of a person being crowned is the most generic thing ever. But how you execute that idea is where you get to flourish as an artist, right? Someone's gonna ask you, if you're a concept artist, to design, I don't know, a fantasy knight, right? You can design the fantasy knight, and it's still going to be a fantasy knight, which is a generic idea, but you can bring something to it that is interesting and unique. What's my opinion on using 2D graphic shapes versus 3D forms for studying? I think you have to have a really good understanding of both. I think this creature only works because the 2D shapes I'm using are appealing and they work, and they tell us whether or not it's meant to be scary or rounded and friendly or anything else. But those 2D shapes, I understand how to relate them to a more solid 3D form. If I just had the 2D shapes, then it would kind of fall flat, because it wouldn't feel like it belongs in 3D space. Good God, what is this music? It's why I recommend that people balance life drawing and like figure construction, and do both at the same time. Not literally at the same time, like not in the life drawing class maybe, although you could, but let's make a new file. So if you're sat in life drawing and you're Here's a person. I mean, this is kind of constructed. So this is a construction, right? And from this construction we can go even deeper. Like we could build up cubes for the body and the pelvis. We could start building up cylinders for arms. Right, this is the 3D stuff. Okay, and then when I'm in a life drawing room, I'm probably gonna look at the 2D graphic shapes that kind of thing is making. Right. Okay, but when I'm doing this, and this is the complicated bit that everyone misunderstands. I've had people who are the like amazing artists not figure this stuff out, which is why I wanted to make a video on it. People will avoid going into a life drawing room and drawing optically based on the 2D shapes that they can see because they don't think it's as useful and they don't see how it transfers to like drawing things using construction from your imagination. Even though you're drawing optically in a life drawing room, so even though in a life drawing room you're constructing things with 2D shapes, you're thinking more in 3D than you ever would doing a construction because you actually have a 3D form in front of you. You're seeing that, oh yeah, I'm gonna draw this line for the side of a body going up into a head. Right. And that comes into a shoulder, and then behind the shoulder we're actually getting a load of back. Right? But you're seeing that in real time, in real space, and you're gonna begin to understand how these shapes are actually representations of these forms, but in a much more intuitive way, right? And they inform each other so well that I think it's a real shame when people, for whatever reason, only do one of these two, and it confuses me because it's like they were made to work together. They're inseparable, really. But I find loads of people that will only ever construct figures from their imagination with boxes and not do any of the 2D optical drawing stuff. And I find even more people who will go to the life drawing class, do the 2D optical stuff, but then they won't learn the construction stuff. So they're missing out. They can, if you put a person right in front of them, they can draw it really, really well. But because they're not understanding how those 2D shapes represent or relate to 3D forms, it kind of limits them when it comes to actually using that information in a meaningful way. Look at all these arrows, so many arrows. It is all design. There's something so, maybe this is, I'm sure most people could cope perfectly fine with just photo references. Like, I'm not saying that you'll never ever succeed if you don't do life drawing, that's ridiculous. You could learn from photo reference, that's fine. But there is something so human and intuitive about actually seeing something in 3D space in front of you and just, you don't have to think about it. you look at it and you understand the form because your eyes have evolved over millennia to be able to look at something and understand the form, right? So if you're not doing life drawing already, do some life drawing. It doesn't have to be a naked person on a really comfy sofa. It can just be, I bought a skull that I use, right? Just plonk it on my desk, start drawing away, and even when I'm drawing a skull, I'm trying to balance the idea of kind of understanding those forms. In like a 3D space. Like the jaw should come back. So, yeah. The Sharingan Eye. Is that some kind of Naruto reference that I'm not going to understand? Yeah, there won't be any life drawing classes, but you don't need life drawing classes. In fact, life drawing classes cost a lot of money, and probably aren't worth what they cost. And from my experience, the models in like private life drawing classes aren't very interesting. It's always, and this is going to be a massive generalization, it's always a group of old men crowded around like a fairly young female model, and she's in like the most weird sexualized pose you could imagine, and I fucking hate it. So yeah, think about doing some life drawing. I think my attitude on most subjects is do everything. If someone asked me, oh, should I learn 3D versus traditional painting, I do both. Oh, should I learn, like, should I do stylized art or should I do like realism? Well, try both, figure it out, see what you like most. There's no one stock method of doing things that's going to satisfy you, really. What else should we do with this landscape? I could add a stickman salesman, but I don't know if I can bear it. Draw people on Adam if you don't have life drawing classes. Draw your friends, family. Hopefully you know some other artists in British Columbia who you can. It's always really nice to meet up, have a few drinks, and draw each other, right? Do some little caricatures of each other. I've got a very good friend who works for Atom Hawk, and he came over the other day and we sat and we kind of swapped sketchbooks and did some really, really mean caricatures of each other, which was it was funny, but you know, a bull or an animal. A bull or an animal. I feel like the space down here is fairly cluttered that I couldn't really add something without it making a mess. If I were gonna add something, I think I'd just add like There you go, there's now like a flock of birdies going through the valley. I don't know. Maybe they should stay up there. Teapots, if you've got a family, Adam, which like most people do have a family, or like a pet, anything that's alive, like still lives are really useful, but the challenge of something moving, and it, like, you don't get your family to pose for you either, just try and draw them while they're going about doing their day-to-day business, right? If you've got, a commute, maybe you get the bus or the train, like 100% draw people on the bus and the train as you see them in front of you as they're moving about. Yeah, or a cafe or the park. Libraries are good. The zoo is amazing. The zoo is like, maybe I should do one of those tier lists of places to life draw, and the zoo would be like S tier. It's a really, really good challenge, and it's just, it's the best practice you'll ever get. Let's flatten everything down. You could take like a vertical slice of this, you know, you can make that. That's the other thing, like cropping in is so useful. Because I could 100% crop in here and like make this a painting that's all about the birds going through the valley or whatever. I could crop in here and make it all about, you know, this tree. What an interesting tree this is. And maybe there's a person beneath it. Right. I could crop in. I could just crop like that. And now it's a lot more about the field and a lot less about the crazy mountains. So I think cropping can be really, really useful. I should save, yeah. Yeah, probably. Let me sharpen it. In a sense, I don't have to save because I'm streaming it all. But that's like a nice fantasy landscape, you know. So. Maybe I should. I've been thinking a lot in terms of line recently. Maybe I should get a little, you know, maybe I should actually think in terms of line and what would be appealing. There's my concept art guy. Maybe he's at the bank of a river. But in the background there's something weird. Like there's a giant hawk or something, but then we're gonna have to bring the composition in or move the hawk across. Yeah, now the giant hawk's having a drink and we're watching from over here. It's casting a big hawk-shaped shadow, which is guiding our eye back towards the viewer. But this guy, he's just stood there. He's a concept art stick salesman. But maybe he's not stood there. Maybe, you know, there's a big rock here, and he's sat behind it. As this hawk is. It's got like a big beady eye that's looking our way. And then if you really want to make it spooky, you have it so the hawk isn't even drinking, it's just like, it's just looking up, isn't it? It's just looking around. It's trying to find you. Maybe its wings come out more like it's perched. Yeah, so maybe I could think in terms of line. In fact, it's something I never ever do. Usually when someone wants to do a quote unquote thumbnail, they will so if that's my hawk, that's my rock, and then maybe the hills in the background illuminate the hawk. But now it looks like someone on skis going down a big hill. Really, really quick with like a jetpack. And they've got their arms outstretched with the ski poles. Right. How am I rotating the brush? I'm doing it with my pen because I have an art pen. But you can use the arrow keys. If you hold shift and then use arrow keys, it'll rotate. So before I had an art pen, I would manually rotate things with arrow keys. And to be honest, it was quite good practice because I think if I had just had the art pen from the beginning, I wouldn't think as hard about the direction that my brushstrokes are going in. But because I had to suffer through doing it manually with the arrow keys for so long, I kind of figured out, how that would work. Yeah, it's not a tilt. I really hate brush tilt. I can't stand it. I think it's the worst thing on this planet. Yeah, it's just in the brush settings as well, so you can just have the brush settings open, and I don't think that's on the screen that I'm streaming, but I'll screenshot it. So that's the brush settings, and it's this thing here. You can just rotate it as you go, which is quite nice. So yeah, I guess I'll save this out. We're officially on number 123 this year. So we are lagging behind a little bit, lagging behind last year. And I think it's because during these streams I'm doing pages of sketches rather than individual little paintings. That's okay. It's okay to be a bit slower. I think I'm learning more, which is the important thing. So bear that in mind when you're studying as well. Yeah, the art pen is expensive. It was one of the first things I bought when I got my student loan. What are the things every concept artist should do? That is the hardest question ever. or the most open-ended, vague question ever. What are the things every concept artist should do? What should their priority be based on learning? I think they should prioritize drawing. This is something I disagree with my friends sometimes about. Is a lot of them might think that the priority of a concept artist should be to learn how to design. Which makes sense. I think design is really, really intuitive if you understand drawing. I think if you can draw, you will naturally make better decisions in terms of shape, proportion, design, because you'll just kind of learn how to recognize what looks good, if that makes sense. Right? So I would front load the drawing, and I would do a hell of a lot of it, as much as you possibly can, and then later on down the line you'll find that design comes much, much easier. Like I've never studied creature design, but I've drawn a lot, and I've drawn a lot of animals. So when I'm designing, quote unquote, designing a creature, I'm I'm using a lot of the shape language that I recognize in other things, and I'm not doing it consciously. I'm not going, oh, right, now I'm going to use the shape language of a llama, and now I'm going to use the shape language of something else. I do it subconsciously, right? It's just part of me. I've absorbed that knowledge. It's mine now. Fang Zhu was talking about something in my video. that'd be amazing if true. Yeah. Yeah, just draw. Draw a lot. There's no downside to drawing a lot. None at all. Right, I'm going to end the stream there. It was a fairly short one. 55 minutes to talk about things. I like just having a chat with you guys. And to do a really mediocre painting. I think if I were to improve it, I would... I wonder why I can't move this. Why won't it let me move anything? The transform tool, for whatever reason, is not working for me. Like I can't even grab something, which is a bit odd. I was going to squish it down. Edit. Transform. Scale. No? No, no, okay. Transform tools crashed. I'm using my mouse at the moment, it's not working. Right. Enjoy. Have a good day. I will... Yeah, I'll come back at 5 and I'll stream again. While I wait for my fiance to come home. So I'll be on at 5 PM.